Thank you, Richard. Um, I'm in my office at Westminster tonight, and someone said, "What is that painting above you, the canvas?" So let me just show you there. That is by Caravaggio, and in it you can see Thomas is there and putting his finger in Jesus's wound and is absolutely amazed that he's raised from the dead. And I've actually seen that the actual original of that in Potsdam, and it had a profound effect on me. So I got the thing off eBay, I think it was, or Amazon on the print, because when I'm in my office, it just reminds me that it's all about faith and dealing with doubt. And remember when uh, Jesus said, "Blessed are you, Thomas, that have seen, but how much more blessed are those that believe and don't see?" And I mention that because tonight the title of my sermon is this: By Faith, Bruce, dot, dot, dot. By faith, Bruce, dot, dot, dot. Now, don't worry, I'm not going off on a big ego trip. It'd just be a nice title to put there on the internet, because then people might watch this and realize that it could be by faith anybody. So it could be by faith you say your name. So I know you're unmuted, but I'm going to say by faith, and then you say your name. By faith, do it one more time. By faith, yes. By faith, Bruce. By faith, you. I just want to talk about that because when we see in Hebrews, Hebrews chapter 11, such a wonderful chapter. And it starts with faith is the assurance of things hoped for. You're assured about things that are going to come in the future, but they're not yet. But you are assured, and you walk in the light of what you're hoping for. You make decisions in the light of what you're hoping for. You make your priorities in the light of what you're hoping for. So it's the assurance that changes your decisions, that changes your priorities because of things that you're hoping for to do with God and his promises. But it's also the conviction of things not seen. We're not moved by things on the earth. We are moved by things in the heavens. So set your mind on things that are above, Paul says, and that faith is sight. And so the conviction of things not seen. There's many things we don't see, many things in the word that we don't see yet. We don't see heaven yet. We don't see Jesus fully yet. There's much that we don't see, but if we have the conviction of these things and we walk in those conviction, again, it will change our decisions, our priorities. We walk in the light of things not seen, and we walk in the assurance of things hoped for. That's what faith is. And the next verse says, for by it the people of old received their commendation. I want to make this very, very strong, that what you will be rewarded for and remembered for in heaven is what you did by faith, the decisions you made by faith, the priorities you made by faith, trusting God against the evidence, in spite of the evidence, trusting God, going God's way, even when naturally it doesn't make sense, but because of what you know about God, he's unseen, but he's real. And because of the things that you are hoping for in the future, a crown to please Jesus, you do it by faith. And that's where you get your commendation. So all that matters in heaven, all that matters in the role of the book of life, people have different opinions about the book of life. My understanding of the book of life, that it isn't about the book where everybody who is saved has their name written in it. But my understanding of the Book of Life is that it is the roll call of those that achieved by faith things for God. It's the honor roll. You know, here I am right next to Westminster Abbey, and if you go in Westminster Abbey, you have all these names and ashes buried and plaques of all the people that Britain recognized as being great or influential. It's like a hall of fame, Westminster Abbey. And in Greek cities, they would have a book of life, and that book of life would record all the great warriors, all the great politicians, all the great sports people, all the great artists. And how do you get your name in that book of life, or how do you get commended by God? Well, it says, for by it, old people received their commendation. Now, I said the title of my sermon was By Faith Bruce, ... and then invited you to replace the name Bruce with your name. And look at the rest of this chapter. It's all about names, individuals, and what they did by faith. By faith, Abel. By faith, Enoch. By faith, Noah. By faith, Abraham. By faith, Sarah. By faith, Isaac. By faith, Jacob. By faith, Joseph. By faith, Moses. By faith, the walls of Jericho came down. And then what more can he says? And he talks about people who, like Rahab, by faith Rahab. And what more shall I say? For time would fail me to tell of by faith Gideon, by faith Barak, by faith Samson, by faith Jephthah, by faith David, by faith Samuel, who through faith conquered kingdoms, enforced justice, obtained promises, stopped the mouth of lions, quenched the power of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, made strong out of weakness, became mighty, and put armies to flight. Women received back their dead. Some were tortured, refusing to accept relief. Others mocked, suffered, flogged, chained, imprisoned, sawn in two, killed with the sword, went around in skins of sheep, afflicted, mistreated, of whom the world was not worthy. And then there in verse 11:39, as the chapter started, so it ended. And all these, though commended through their faith, did not receive what was promised. Commended through their faith. So there's that list. And that list could extend right through the New Testament. By faith Peter, by faith Paul, by faith Stephen, by faith Philip, by faith Timothy. And then it could go right through church history, all the martyrs in the famous book, Fox's Book of Martyrs, all the great evangelicals of last century and the centuries before, by faith Wesley, by faith Spurgeon, by faith Wilberforce, by faith General Booth, by faith you, not just the famous people, but by faith. And in that roll of honor, where they're commended, they're not commended for anything else but by their faith. For Hebrews also says that it's impossible to please God without faith, and that to please God, you've got to believe that he is, even though he's invisible, and you also need to believe that he is a rewarder of those that seek him. You've got to believe that in the future you will be rewarded. And in fact, there's this wonderful quote by R.T. Kendall referring to this passage in Hebrews 11. He says this, one of his definitions of faith is this: faith is unrewarded obedience. Might be worth writing that down. Faith is unrewarded obedience. In other words, you trust God even though you don't yet have the reward, believing that your obedience will be rewarded either in this life or the life to come. Faith is unrewarded obedience. One day it will be rewarded in this life or the life to come, but you trust God before you get the reward. You trust God before you get the reward. And so when we look at this passage also, what stands out for me is that it's very personal. It's so personal because there's so many names in this passage. That's why I said by faith Bruce, ... and by faith your own name. This is personal. These are individuals who were recognized for nothing other than their trusting God, their obedience, and their faith in God, in his promises, in his word, in the future, of what the future will become, in his character, in his faithfulness, all these things, trusting these before they see it, trusting these before they see it. So you look at each one, and we won't go through each one, but in each one you'll see that there was something they did that they had to do by trusting the invisible God, the invisible promises, the character of God, and trusting that what they did, which might not make sense at the time, would make sense in the future. So Noah building an ark, in the desert, and all these other things that they did. And so in that last passage from verse 3 to 35, we have this wonderful picture of how great faith is. It brings the kingdom, it manifests the promises. It's greater than animals, the animal and the natural world. It shuts the mouths of lions. It opposes the natural order and laws of nature where necessary. It makes the weak strong. It brings courage. It changes the psychology of the enemy. By faith, enemies were put to flight. It raises from the dead. Nothing is impossible. But each journey of faith, although each Christian is trusting in the same God, whose character never changes, he's the same yesterday, today, and forever, who's faithful to his promises and trustworthy through the ages. And although we have the same God and the same promises, if you like, general promises and character of God, each one of us have a unique journey of faith. By faith, Abel did things that Abraham did not do by faith. By faith, Moses did things that Noah didn't do by faith. By faith, Rahab did something that none of the rest did by faith. And so as we go through, we see, although it was the same God, the same faith, the trusting God, the same principles, yet their walk with the Lord was unique. It wasn't by faith they all did the same thing in the same way, exactly carbon copy. It was by faith in the same God they did what God had personally appointed for them. That's why we have to be careful not to compare ourselves with others too much. We can learn from others. We can see the faith of Abraham and his faith victories and also his faith unbelieving mistakes. We can look at those and go, there's principles here. But none of us are going to have an Isaac like he had an Isaac. None of us are going to leave our homes and go to Mesopotamia. So the principles of the faith are the same for us all, but there is a personalization of faith that is unique to us as individuals. There's also a sense in which each congregation or each family has a unique journey together. So each married couple has a unique journey together. I often say in marriage counseling, be careful, not marriage, pre-marriage counseling, be careful when you meet couples who tell you, who speak to you as if their experience of marriage is everybody's experience of marriage. Everybody's experience of marriage is different, although the principles of a good marriage are the same. We don't have to be carbon copies of one another, but we work the same principles. That's why this Hebrews 11 is beautiful. By faith, Isaac, by faith, Jacob, by faith, names, names, names. So many names that the author of Hebrews, who I think was Paul, says, look, there's so many. Here's some more names. Here's Barak. Here's David. Here's Solomon. I mean, I could go on and on and on. Names, names. And each name, same principles of trusting God, but very different paths they were asked to walk. And so the same faith that conquers armies is the same faith that a martyr will go to his or her persecuted death with. It's the same faith. And God will never ask you to do anything that he hasn't created in you the faith to do. Sometimes you look at people and say, I could never be a Billy Graham. Well, that's because your name isn't Billy Graham. Oh, I could never be, Charles Spurgeon. That's because your name isn't Charles Spurgeon. You can learn the principles in those men and other women's lives, but that's not your name. Why are you trying to be somebody that you're not? I'm not saying you are, but why would you look at someone and feel down because that's not them? You don't have other people's giftings, you don't have other people's calling, but you do have God's calling. And that is by faith. So, as I come to a close, sometimes it's good to look back on your life. What have you done by faith in the past? Your testimonies. Here's one. By faith, Patience, even though she was the mother of two young teenagers and whose husband is in a very important, very busy job, by faith, Patience heard the call of God, and with trepidation, but faith, she stepped out and she got her qualification and moved into a job that she would never have before and reaped the benefits of it and left that job, leaving a great reputation because of God. She did that by faith. Now, by faith, Patience is moving forward again. And she's going to, again, step out and invest in training because she believes, and it's being confirmed to her in different prophetic ways. So she's taking that step by faith and paying a price for that and trusting God in it. And these next 2 years or so will be investing in this. But who knows in the future what benefits that will have for God, herself, her family, and her kingdom. I remember my wife, by faith, she was a school teacher, head of RE in a secondary school. She felt called to educational psychology. And we, by faith, believed it was God's will. So we as a family made sacrifices. Jacob was a young boy at the time because we really believed God was in it. And it was difficult, but by faith we did it. But we have been reaping the benefits since. We had no idea that we would have a disabled daughter. And Nicola's expertise just in that has made a tremendous difference, notwithstanding all the difference she's had on other people. So you look back. When was the time you trusted God, went his way? When was the time that you trusted what God said rather than the visible world? When was the time you made your choices because you knew the future and what God's future was? So you aligned yourself with God because you know Eternity is what's real. And you made a decision that was in line with the eternal future and plans of God rather than in line with the seen world. By faith, your name. So you should think about that a little bit. You should think about, because all of us have these by because that's all that's going to be, that's all that's going to remain. When we go to heaven, all that will remain, all that will be written in your earthly faith biography will be that which you've done by faith. Nothing else will be in there. Your mistakes won't be in there. You notice nobody's mistakes were there. Abraham's mistakes weren't there. Sarah's mistakes weren't there. It says by faith, Sarah, wait a second, she laughed, you know, but Noah got drunk. That's not in there. All those things are under the blood. But what will be recorded is that which is worthwhile, that which is gold, that which is 1 Corinthians 3, precious stones of faith, precious gold of faith. Those things will last. And you will have what you did by faith. You'll have a record. You and I will join Hebrews chapter 11, and God will be able to sum up by faith what we did. So that's what we get approved for. That's what pleases God. That's what he will remember us for. When we go to heaven, all the rest of the stuff won't mean a thing to us or God or anybody, but what will remain and what will mean something, what will be on his report, is the times we trusted and believed in him, his leading and promises for our lives, and his faithful character. By faith, your name, that's the key. Thank you, Pastor Richard.